Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's weekly live immigration attorney chat here at Immigration for Couples. And I see we already have a lot of people joining us live and individuals that already have thrown questions in the chat and comments, and I will definitely get to those. I'm excited to be with all of you here today. If you are new to our firm, Immigration for Couples, just like we sound, or just like the name sounds, we are dedicated exclusively to helping couples across the nation and across the world and navigating the U.S. immigration process. And we know that the immigration process, and I know, having personally gone through an immigration journey with my husband, a lot of members of our team have also gone through their own personal immigration journeys. We know that the process is overwhelming and stressful. And it's so important to have clarity and community. And that's why I host these weekly chats to give you all both clarity and community so you know you're not alone. I want to also let all of you know about our free resource center. I'll throw that up at the bottom at immigrationforcouples.com. We've created a very robust resource center, from things on how to prove your relationship to charts that give an overview of the different processes that are available to couples, and a webinar that I created that goes through how to really have a good immigration experience. What are the eligibility requirements, how to successfully complete the process, not just from winning your case, but also from an emotional standpoint of coming out the other side with resiliency. So check that out at immigrationforcouples.com. And I will go ahead and I will toggle over here. I'd like to start out. Some of you already know, I can see. Good morning from New York City in Canada. I love to start. Where are you at in the world? So if you can throw that in the chat, where are you at right now in the world? We have someone here. Oops, we have someone here from Australia, Canada. It's great to have you with us, Emmanuel. And Julia, New York, keep them coming. Where are you all at? Lisa, it's great to have you with us from Florida. Yeah, so keep them coming. I'd also like to hear from all of you. We have Ohio, Las Vegas, Michigan, sunny and hot Orlando. Sounds like a good place to be. Kazakhstan, awesome. Ginger, I know you're here from the UK. You're one of our regular followers too. And I'd like to ask all of you too, I'd love to know, where are you at in your immigration journey? And by that, I mean, are you just starting out? You haven't filed anything, you're trying to understand options, or are you in the middle of your journey, or are you at the end? So just say start, middle, or end. I'd love to see where everybody's at in their journey. And I think that helps too for all of you to see you're not alone. We're all in this together, right? So I'm going to go ahead, and while everybody's throwing that in the chat, I'm going to start with our very first question that we had. So it's great to have you with us. And you're in Nevada. And I saw your question. Yours was the first one that popped up. And just so all of you know, I'm streaming this live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram all at the same time. So if you're asking a question, I'm on a separate platform, and it will give me all of your questions in the order that I receive them, and I will answer them in that order as well. So you had asked this question right at the top of our hour here, or half hour rather, and I noticed that I could tell rather, like you say here, you're very worried and concerned, and that's really common. The waiting often is the hardest part. The waiting and the wondering, is it being reviewed? Do they actually have it? Is there anything wrong? You're not alone in those feelings. That's very common. And yes, if you're going through a spouse visa process, it is taking at least a solid year, if not more, to get a decision on the first step. It also depends too. I'm not, I don't have all the details of your case. There's not enough space here for you to give me all the information I'd need, but it depends on whether or not you're petitioning for him as a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident, because that can change wait time too. But as long as you have the receipt notice, as long as you have confirmation that immigration has your file and you're in line, it is common for it to say actively being reviewed for a long time. And actively reviewed doesn't actually mean what we think it means, where you're imagining an immigration officer that has your file and is actually looking at it. It just means it's in the stack, ready to be looked at. But you're getting close. Hopefully you'll get a decision here soon. I would encourage you to check out our free resource center if you're going through the spouse visa process, to look at that chart and see the steps that you have coming up as well. But hopefully you'll get a decision here soon. And what a perfect thing to say, hopefully, that the very next comment, I have someone that has their name as hopefully, and you said that it took yours 18 months. So now you can see kind of some context too. Wait times are all over the board, but they are sadly long for that spouse visa process. All right. Okay. I have a lot of individuals who tell me where they're from. That's awesome. Keep those coming. Okay. So, Natalie, you're wanting to know how a Nikah Islamic marriage can affect the fiance or spouse visa process. Great question. And really, I'd like to give some general information for everyone because that's the goal of this weekly live is for everybody to be educated and understand more about the immigration process, and so you have clarity. So with the fiance visa process, you have to be legally free to marry. So you can't be married legally anywhere in the world. And any prior marriages, if you had any prior marriages, they have to have ended either in death or divorce. And so you have to be legally free to marry. Now, marriage, of course, marriage rules and laws are different in every country. And so you have to look at what are the legal requirements in the place where I'm at that I'm going to have my wedding. Is this a legally binding marriage? Is this recognized as a legal marriage? If it is a legal marriage in the place where you are getting married, then you would not be eligible for a fiance visa process. If it's a legally binding marriage, though, then you would be eligible for that spouse visa process. And so immigration has a reciprocity table, U.S. immigration, that they look at to determine whether or not the marriage was legally binding in the country where it occurred. There are some countries, for example, the one that was just top of mind right now is Nigeria. There's different ways of getting married. There's different types of divorce, and it's very specific as to those circumstances as to whether or not a marriage or divorce would be legally recognized. So the short answer is if it is a legally binding marriage where it occurred, then a person is not eligible for a fiance visa because you have to be legally free to marry with the intention of getting married. And then if you are legally married, then you would be eligible for that spouse visa. And immigration has a reciprocity table that you can check, but you would need to check the rules and the laws and the policies and procedures in the country where you are living to confirm whether or not that is a legally binding marriage. All right, but great question. Okay, so I have someone that's asking, how long does it take to get advanced parole after biometrics is being applied and the adjustment application is pending? So what we're seeing currently on wait times for that travel permit or advanced parole, we've had some unicorn cases that they come in a few months. Others we've seen it take more like 6 to 8 months. It's definitely better than it was in, say, 2022, where it was taking more than a year to get that advanced parole. So it's definitely decreased in terms of wait time. I would say we're seeing on average anywhere from about 6 to 8 months, give or take. So, all right, hopefully you get yours soon, or maybe even better, get your green card and not need that, right? Okay, how long is the wait for an embassy interview in El Salvador? Well, it depends on what kind of visa what kind of visa interview. That will play a big factor. It also depends on the category. So if it's a lawful permanent resident petitioning for their spouse, that was going to take longer to get an interview. In general, though, for fiance and spouse visa cases, I would say on average, most of our clients have their interview in 6 months or less, that it's scheduled in under 6 months. The wait time for our clients in El Salvador has been shorter than a lot of other countries. But I would say on that's just a rough estimate. On the fiance visa cases, you're able to schedule your own interview typically in most countries. But I would just say a good estimate is about 6 months, give or take. All right. Okay, so if someone needs a vaccine waiver, are they eligible for adjustment of status? So the part of receiving a green card, part of the requirements to receive a green card is that you have to complete a medical exam. You have to complete this medical exam because immigration wants to make sure that you don't have a communicable disease, that you are not a harm to yourself or others. That's really the goal of the medical exam. And part of that medical exam is also receiving vaccines that are indicated by the CDC to be required as part of that green card process. So, for individuals who have a religious or moral objection to receiving these vaccines, you can file for a waiver. That waiver has to be approved in order for you to receive your green card. So, yes, a person can file an application for their green card, but that application cannot be approved until the vaccine waiver is filed and approved. If the vaccine waiver is not, for some reason, is not approved, then that person would either have to get the vaccines or you would not be eligible for your green card. But in general, if you have a religious or moral objection to vaccines, my firm has helped with that waiver process to be able to receive that vaccine waiver, and then the person can receive their green card. So great question. All right. And again, for those of you who are just joining us, I want to let you know about our free resource center at immigrationforcouples.com. We have tons of free evidence guides, so a relationship evidence guide and overview charts of the different processes that are available to couples. All right, I'll go back and see where we are in my question queue. And so you are from Tucson. So good morning. You're applying for a fiance visa. You were just received your case number from the National Visa Center. What happens next? So I'll do my 30,000 foot view of the fiance visa process for everybody. So the very first step is the petition, where you have to prove you have a real relationship based on love and that you meet all the requirements of the fiance visa, having met in person, legally free to marry, intention to marry. And then from there, your case is transferred to the National Visa Center. The National Visa Center's job is to assign your case a case number and transfer the file to the consular post. So the U.S. Embassy or consulate where that interview will occur. So after receiving the National Visa Center email, you will also be receiving an embassy or consular email that gives you instructions with next steps. And then from there, you'd have your interview at the U.S. Embassy or consulate. After it's at that interview when you would receive a decision, and after your visa is approved, immigration puts that visa in your passport, and then you'll enter the United States and complete the green card process. Your final step. It's a lengthy. The fiance visa process is a lengthy process with many different steps. And I did recently create a video series on YouTube, and it's also on our website at immigrationforcouples.com. And I go over those steps in even more detail. But yeah, next you'll be hearing from the embassy or consulate with additional instructions. But congratulations on the petition being approved. That's exciting. All right. So you have a 48-year age gap. You're a same-sex couple. Any interview tips? And it's in India. So immigration has certain red flags that they look at in cases, and one of those red flags is an age gap. And so I don't know if you have filed your case yet. I'm not sure if this is a fiance or spouse visa. But even before the interview, the most important thing with applications that have red flags is making sure that every step in the process, that every application that's filed is a very solid application, solid evidence, because it is at that interview, immigration is going to be looking back at the entirety of that application. And so what we do to help our clients is making sure the very first step, that petition we file, really paints the immigration a picture, helps them to see, we understand immigration. You might see that our relationship has red flags. We have this age gap, right? But we really do love each other. And we show them that, we tell them a story through the evidence. So making sure that evidence is solid, there's no contradictions. It really helps immigration to see that you're in love. And I do have a relationship evidence guide. I'll throw that back up here, immigrationforcouples.com. But making sure those first steps are solid, that's imperative, that the first applications and every application that's filed helps to really mitigate any thoughts that immigration or any concerns that immigration has about these perceived red flags in your case. That will put you in the best spot for an interview. So that's my biggest interview tip, is being proactive even before the interview. And then at the actual interview itself, looking back at your prior filings, familiarizing yourself with all of the evidence that's been filed. And really, as a couple, I'm sure you have spent time talking about your past and your future goals and really getting to know each other, because immigration is going to be asking questions generally about your relationship and about each other's history, making sure you know each other's date of birth, for example, if either of you have been married before, how you met and when you met, how your relationship has progressed, why you love each other. Those are just a few examples. But my biggest interview tip is just making sure that everything that's filed before the interview is strong. All right. And if you're just starting out too, I put that free resource center. Um, Alabama and Netherlands. That's great. Keep them keep them coming. And now I'm seeing everybody's comments about where they're at. You're just starting out, you're in the middle and in the middle. Have some people that are and you have your interview in 3 weeks. Okay, so that's why you were asking about the interview questions. So hopefully, those very first applications you filed were strong. I mean, they were approved, but just making sure you've reviewed everything and that you're, prepared for the questions to the extent that you can be prepared with looking back at those applications, and you know each other. So make sure you get a good night's rest and relax, right? As much as you can before, so you can go in confident. All right. So let me make sure I didn't skip anybody. So as with with it being election year, how would that affect processing times given the impending change in leadership? So depending on, no one has a crystal ball to know what's going to happen, but depending on who becomes president, that can have an impact, of course, on processing times. So it's important to understand. I know I've had a lot of people asking on social media, a lot of clients asking, concerned, what if, Trump were to become president? How would that impact the immigration process? And I know they're asking because during his prior term as president, he made a lot of changes that increased wait times and imposed a lot more obstacles, even for couples going through the process. So I want to always provide education, but I'm also wanting to make sure I give all of you reassurance, because I know there's just a lot of fear mongering. There's just a lot of fear and anxiety and stress right now with these elections, and I don't want to perpetuate that. It's important to be educated, but I want you to understand and know that there are certain things that a president can change and can't. And so I think that knowledge there is power, understanding that the Immigration and Nationality Act, that's a very big book with a very long list of all of the eligibility requirements. It's in the Immigration and Nationality Act where you will find the requirements for spouse visas and fiance visas. That Immigration and Nationality Act, those are the immigration laws. Those can't be changed by the president alone. That would take an act of Congress, a decision of Congress. What a new president can do is impact the wait times. And so I understand, that's what you're asking here. And they can impact wait times. And what we saw during the prior Trump administration is that he closed all of the USCIS offices abroad. We used to be able to file cases for spouses directly with USCIS offices abroad in way less time. We would get cases approved in under months often. All those offices were closed. There were layoffs of immigration officers. And then the biggest thing was putting more obstacles in place that really anyone going through an immigration process, including couples, more obstacles, more hoops to jump through, which increased the wait times. So that would be a worst case scenario. But that is something that can happen if there is a change in president. And so also giving some reassurance and peace of mind, knowing elections haven't happened yet. If you're a US citizen, we can all go out and do our civic duty and let our voices be heard and vote. So thank you for your question. I hope that helps give you some clarity. All right. I have a lot. I just wanted to scroll through here. Oh, and I just see here, Jan, yay, congratulations. You got your visa approved. All right. Let me go back here and There's so many questions that I lost my place here and I don't want to skip anyone. There we go. Can you provide an estimate for the US Consulate, Sydney, Australia? You were documentarily qualified on May 15th. I'm assuming that this is. Oh, okay. And I see so if you ask a question, please only ask it one time because I am streaming on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. I get the questions and I will go through them and I will answer them in the order I receive them. I will do my best to get to all the questions before the end of our time together, but it really helps for clarity for me to if you just ask it once, I promise I'll do my best to get to it. So an estimate, I'm guessing this is a spouse visa. Again, I would say 6 months. In general, that's a general estimate for wait times. It can definitely take less or more time. But in general, that's really what we're seeing for our clients processing Sydney. All right. Okay. Congratulations on getting your petition filed. That's exciting. I do have some concerns though, and I'm wondering if this is just a typo, but that you filed an I-130 for your fiance. So the I-130 process is for spouses, for individuals who are married. I'm wondering if you're already married and just still calling each other fiance. But the fiance visa process is a different form. But congratulations on getting your application filed. I would just be remiss if I didn't make that comment just in case. So yeah, I know, and yeah, I know you've been in the process for a while. You're at a 6-month mark now, so hopefully halfway. Hopefully you get a decision soon. Okay, and you just got and you had let us know earlier that it was an 18-month wait for you. So congratulations on getting the approval. That's exciting. Oh yes, the dreaded taking longer than expected. I know they created that online account with the idea of providing more clarity and transparency, but it really just causes a lot more stress and anxiety when it changes from they usually do like a countdown and it says you're getting closer and closer, and then all of a sudden it says taking longer than expected. I know that that's frustrating, but you're at 11 months. Hopefully you'll get a decision soon. We're all sending you positive vibes to get a decision soon. Okay, so your IR1 case during the transit stage in SEAC, the note says your interview has been scheduled. So you should have, if your interview was scheduled, you should have gotten an email confirmation from the embassy or consulate. So a SEAC is where you upload everything, and it will change to say that, if your interview has been scheduled, but the actual interview date and confirmation, that should come from the embassy or consulate. Check your spam folder. We always tell our clients, check your spam folder. It always seems like the phone calls and the emails that we actually want to receive get blocked or put in spam. And it's a good place to check to make sure the embassy didn't send you an email because they might have. And if they haven't, then you should reach out to make sure you're not missing an interview date. All right. I'm going to get some of my coffee here while I read. It's one of those days, not enough caffeine in the world. So you had an I-129F. Yeah, that's always hard with the fiancé visa process. So you're asking about including information about reservations that you've made for the wedding, but you don't know. Like immigration's like, show us, prove to us that you want to get married, that you have intentions to get married, but we can't tell you when that you're going to be approved so you can make wedding plans. So if you're able to, sometimes we have clients that are making wedding plans that are with companies or locations or places that have some flexibility so that their reservation could be changed. So if that's the situation where you'd be able to do that, booking a wedding with the church, knowing that they have flexibility for you to change that date, that could be okay. It is hard to plan. So there's plenty of other evidence too that you can use if you're not able to have that church reservation for your wedding date. Maybe you've already picked out a wedding dress, or maybe you have your engagement rings. There's a lot of other types of evidence that can help with that. But if you have it and you can include it, then go for it. It definitely doesn't hurt. All right. Oh, okay, and I think I think I already answered your question. I think you just asked it in a different way. So yeah, if you have your interview in 3 weeks, what I was saying earlier was just making sure you had an initial application that's very strong since you have already filed it. Then go through what you filed with immigration, familiarize yourself with that evidence, and being prepared. I gave you some ideas of some questions that immigration will likely ask. They will definitely ask about the age gap. They'll ask why you're in love. What are your common interests? Those are just a few ideas of what they will likely ask you. Um, Answering honestly is another interview tip. And if you don't know a question, don't guess. But really, the biggest piece, like I said, was making sure you had a strong application filed and then reviewing all of that before the interview. But best of luck to you. Oh, yeah, you're worried about your girlfriend set to leave for Thursday. Saturday is 90 days, and with flights being canceled and backed up. Yeah, hopefully lots of prayers, lots of positive vibes, a lot of manifesting what you want, and that everything will go well with her departure on Thursday. Um, if not, then just trying to get rebooked well before Saturday. But good luck. Hopefully everything goes smoothly. I know that's stressful. Okay, so your case had some divine intervention. My NVC stage has been short, DQ July 8th, and it says ready, and it's at the embassy now. Yeah, that's great. We're actually seeing the same thing with the National Visa Center. They've actually caught up. The NVC, once we get everything filed for our clients, we're usually seeing that we get a documentarily qualified in some cases in a few days, but in most cases in a few weeks. So it's definitely moving a lot faster. It's the interview piece and the interview scheduling that's so dependent on the embassy or consulate. So that's great. Congratulations. Hopefully you get that interview soon. Yeah, interview wait times in Nigeria. Unfortunately, that's one of the longer wait times in terms of all consular posts. Our clients from Nigeria, yeah, there's just a few or a lot of consulates. Nigeria is one of them, Mexico, the Philippines, that just have a longer wait for interviews. Most of our cases for our clients in Nigeria, it's taking at least a solid year to get an interview date. So on average, about 12 months, sometimes a little bit more. So that's common. That is common that you're still waiting, with it taking about a year. I really hope that those wait times decrease because I know it's very hard on our couples. But just think positive, and instead of thinking about how far away it is, keep thinking one day closer. You've been in this process. You are getting closer every single day, and you will eventually be together. Just don't lose hope and keep going. All right. Fingers crossed for an interview soon. Yeah, this is a great question. So there's the International Marriage Brokers Act. That's a question on the fiance visa, and the reason is that they want to make sure that individuals are protected who are being brought on a fiance visa. There was a notorious case that long ago that really prompted all these rules around these dating sites and the services that you can use when going through the fiance visa process, because there were individuals that were sadly being trafficked, that were being brought on fiance visas and were sadly being trafficked, or they were in some really sad cases were murdered. And so that's why immigration put these rules in place. And so, to answer your question, though, about meeting on a social media site, most dating sites are not what they consider that mail order bride situation, for lack of a better way to describe it. It really depends on whether or not it's an agency that's like arranging your match, and if you have had to pay for any kind of arrangement services, and so you'll see those questions on the application. And so what we do for our clients is we always ask what dating website, where they met, and how they met to determine whether or not if this is the type of situation that has to be disclosed to immigration. In general, most online dating websites are not that type of situation where they're arranging a match, if you will. So typically, you don't have to include that kind of those terms of service in the application itself. It really just depends on the dating website and the circumstances of how you were matched and how you communicate with one another. So without knowing the exact website, it doesn't, it doesn't hurt to include the terms, but I'm always hesitant to say that you should, because you don't want to send things that are going to cause immigration to like pause and think, wait, is this an issue? We weren't thinking that it was. So in general, on dating sites, most dating sites, you don't have to, but it really does depend on how the match was made. So I can definitely make more detailed videos about that, because this seems to be a topic that I'm being asked about more. So I will definitely do that. So stay tuned for more details. Okay, so you're wanting to know if you can file the petition, and I think you mean 765, which is a work permit concurrently. Um, I'm guessing that's what you mean. So there are some cases where you can file the petition and the work permit at the same time. There are others that it's just not legally allowed. And so if it's an adjustment of status case where your spouse is actually here and qualifies for adjustment, then there'd be other forms that would have to be included as well. Otherwise, it will not result in a quicker processing time. It will just result in you getting an application back that's, that they could send the entire thing back and it can cause delays. There is an additional fee. And trust me, immigration, even if it's the wrong form, they'll keep your fee, and then they'll tell you later, oh, it's the wrong form. So the answer is I don't know without knowing more about the situation of your case. It sounds like your spouse is abroad though, so that would not be an appropriate filing. I'm happy, and I will put that back up here. I'm happy to speak with any of you privately in a consultation if you're wanting customized legal advice. I put the phone number below and our website if you're wanting to schedule a consultation. All right. I have a couple more minutes. I can do a few more questions. There's so many, and that's great. I love seeing everybody here. I will go through the questions that I don't get to and that's where I get a lot of ideas for my video topics to put out there on our Facebook and YouTube channel. So please know I will still go through and look at your questions. It's possible that they will have her redo the medical exam. It will just depend. It'll depend on when the vaccines were completed, when the medical exam was completed, what the civil surgeon notated in the medical exam at her medical exam in Canada. In some situations, immigration will require another medical exam, and if they do, they'll send you a request to complete a medical exam. Okay, hello from Kenya. Thank you for being with us. Okay. I think I have time for like one more question. Okay, so how long does it take for military parole in place to be approved? Uh, Military parole in place is filed in the state in which you live, in the jurisdiction in which you live. And so those applications are very dependent on that state. So some states have a much longer wait time. Like, for example, if you would be in the jurisdiction of the Chicago field office, that takes a very long time for them to get a decision. And then in other offices, we've gotten them in less than 6 months. So it's just, I know everybody wants an exact wait time. I can't give that to you, but I'll say on average, 6 months is kind of what we see, but it can definitely take much longer depending on jurisdiction. Um, okay, will working in the military put our case under advanced parole when we go to the interview? I'm not let's see. And good morning to you too. My wife lives in AP to me means advanced parole, which is something else in immigration. I don't think that's what you mean. So my wife lives in Russia. I'm trying to figure out so you're waiting for your interview. Um, if you're going through a spouse visa process and your wife is in Russia, then she will have her interview typically in Warsaw or another consular post since the U.S. consulate in Russia is closed. You working in the military won't impact the case. She's the only one that has to attend the interview. So once her interview is scheduled, you'll get a confirmation. You'll get an email letting you know her interview has been scheduled. So I apologize. I'm not entirely sure what your question is based on the abbreviations, but hopefully that information that I provided will in some way help. All right. So I do need to jet. I will go through these other questions that I received here today. There's so many of them. Um, I know I wish I had time. I wish I had time to go through all of them. I will, and I will make videos. And if you didn't get your question answered today, I will be back here again next Tuesday at 11 a.m. I answer the questions in the order I receive them. So if you jump in early, I will get to answer your questions next week. And yes, my dress has words of love in French. I thought that was very apropos for today. Well, it was great being with all of you. Please do, if I didn't get to your question today, please do check out our free resource center at immigrationforcouples.com. It's very robust. It goes over a lot of the common questions that I receive. And again, like I said, I'm going to go through these questions and I will make video topics. And if not, we will talk about your questions next week. All right, everyone. Have a great rest of your week. Take care. We'll be in touch.